Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan, author of the series of books Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters, 38 volumes in paperback, ebook, Kindle, and audiobook. All of them available at Amazon. But if you go to our website, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com, there are all viable links to the books as well as our shop, where there's a lot of cool new merchandise up there. Hats, hoodies, magnetic bumper stickers, coffee mugs. So have at it, folks. Grab a book, grab a cup of joe, put your hoodie on, and dig the show. And here's my brother and co-host, KJ. How are you, Kevin?
I'm good. How about you, Bill?
Good, man. I'm hustling around this morning. I was practicing a little guitar.
Good deal, man. Bending the strings a little.
Yeah, well, my instructor, Connor Franzone, excellent guitar player, he had me working on this exercise called running thirds in a blues scale pattern. So now we've jumped the fence into putting this running thirds exercise into major and minor relative scales. He calls it the hell exercise.
Nice, aptly named, I guess.
Very inviting, wouldn't you say? We're
going lovely.
We're going to move into the hell exercise, William.
So speaking of the hell exercise, I think, you probably want to work with Connor to put together a little Bigfoot terrorizing you theme song. A little original composition.
Well, maybe I'll bring it up. It'll require some thought and composition, but we may be able to come up with something.
I think might be good. A little Bigfoot blues. All right, Bill. So what do you have for us today?
Well, something really interesting. This following visual as well as evidentiary account was told to me by a fellow named Thomas Baxter, who at the time of this event was 17 years old. And this is what Thomas had to share with me. In 1971, I was living in a house in Tennessee, just northwest of Livingston, near the southeastern fork of Dale Hollow Lake. Obviously, at the time, I was a young man living in my parents' house, and I had two siblings. My younger brother, Wade, who was 6, and my oldest sister, Tamara, who was 20. The house was actually a third-generation dwelling within our family, and my grandmother was still living there with us. Her husband, my grandfather, had passed away years earlier. This house was situated in a fairly rural setting at the time, with a long backyard which was buffered by woods, being about 1,000 yards or so from the lake itself. The house was an old 2-story farmhouse with 3 bedrooms on the second floor, 2 on the first, one being the master and the other a smaller bedroom which Wade slept in. I should mention that in all the years we had lived in and visited this house, there had not been a single incident worthy of talking about in regards to it being unsafe to be in or around this property in any way, shape, or form. It was in the fall of that year, 71, and my father had just changed out all the window screens, replacing them with the glass storm windows for the winter months. These were the old insert-style windows, which, when they were placed into the opening, several wing nut type of fixtures were turned over the edges to hold them in place securely. I should also mention that these so-called wing nuts were so gummed up with paint over the many years that we actually had to use pliers to twist them into position. I think many people can relate to that. My father, who was a fairly stout man, to say the least, could not move them with his bare fingers. I slept upstairs at the time, and it was during one night that I was awakened by what sounded like Wade crying. I also heard a commotion going on downstairs, so I ran downstairs to see what the matter was. Wade was crying, saying something about a man touching the glass, looking in the window at him. He had a nightlight in his room because he was still young and somewhat afraid of the dark, and all of us were making faces at each other as though nothing really happened, thinking perhaps he had fabricated or dreamt up the whole thing. Well, my dad went outside, and I accompanied him, and finding nothing remarkable, that was that, or so we thought. About a week later, under basically the same circumstances, I was awakened again, this time by a loud scream, and I flew downstairs, almost breaking my neck in the process. Wade was frantic, this time saying that some monster had reached into his room and touched him in his bed. My dad and I immediately ran into the room, and feeling the cold air, we saw the storm window had been removed, which was directly next to Wade's bed. My dad took one look at me, and we ran to get his shotgun, running out of the door into the night. It was pitch black, and as we rounded the corner of the house, the storm window had hadn't fallen out, but rather was leaning against the house as though you or I would place it down, having removed it. As I've already told you, there were 4 of these gummed-up wing nuts on each window, and we had just removed and replaced them using pliers. There was no way this had fallen out and miraculously landed safely leaning against the house. We looked around we looked around a little as my father shouted to my mother to call the police. Sometime later, an officer showed up, and after having done the usual walk-around, asked my parents if they had noticed any of the neighbors acting oddly in recent months, to which they said emphatically, no. The only thing we had noticed was that the grass was tamped down. But we had just been outside there as well, working on the windows with a stepladder and the like, so to us, this was really meaningless. The officer had said the usual things like, please call if anything else happens, and he left. Well, as it turns out, something else would happen, and it was only 2 days later. Wade came home from school that day not feeling well, and went to bed early. My grandmother had stayed with him a while, and we went into town to get some groceries. We had been gone for the better part of an hour, and as we were returning, it was already dark and had been for about 45 minutes. As we rounded the last turn to approach the house, we could see the flashlights of not one but 2 squad cars in the yard and knew immediately that something had transpired while we were absent. As we entered the house, Grandma was hugging Wade, and the policeman was sitting on the couch. This, of course, was way before cell phones, so we had no idea what happened. That night happened to be raining quite hard while we were away, and upon returning, the dirt driveway was already muddy and puddling here and there. The officer said that the young boy said a monster was pressing its face against his window. Terrified, Wade had run out of the room to his grandmother, and it was she who had called the police. These officers were both well aware of what had happened just the other day, and in fact one of them was the very same officer from the other night. They had actually just arrived only minutes before we had and stepped outside as a group. And we stepped outside as a group, being only the men, myself included. As we walked around by the window, it appeared to have smudges and what was drool or snot dripping down the glass, like that of a dog's smeared all over a fair amount of the middle of the pane. Although it was raining out, the rain had not made contact with the window whatsoever, but the ground was wet and had been for several hours at the very least. As the one officer was shining his light on the ground, there were several large and fairly well-formed bare footprints, like an enormous human had made them with no shoes on. There were no garden beds next to the house, only grass with a few shrubs placed here and there along the edges of the foundation. These prints were clear and distinct, and had been created by some heavy downward force into the ground. Looking at our own prints, all we had done was flatten the wet grass, and yet whatever had made these had sunk into the grass about 2 inches. Grass and ground, I should say, about 2 inches. The police were exchanging glances, saying very little, which to me was a bit mysterious at the time. But I did take note of it. The one cop actually rode into the yard with his lights on, while shining his spotlight all around the area as best as he could. Eventually, we all went back into the house. By that time, Wade had calmed down a bit as an officer cautiously began to interview him, while trying not to upset him in the process. He asked him what he saw, and Wade put his fingers to his mouth, stretching his mouth open wide and exposing his teeth as wide as he could, while at the same time exaggerating opening his eyes as wide as he could. He looked like a screaming chimpanzee, and I tried to refrain myself from laughing at him. The officer then said, "What happened next, Wade?" Wade told him the monster pressed his ugly face against the window, staring at him with big wide eyes and teeth, and he ran out of the room. The officer said that he and his partner would have a good look around and stop back before leaving, which they did. They had seen nothing, but were in no way saying that nothing happened, and we didn't know what they said amongst themselves when they were out of our company. At 9:45 p.m., they were gone. Wade fell asleep on my grandma's lap. My dad was deeply troubled by all of these occurrences. Next to the house, and conveniently facing the side which Wade slept on, was a large barn-like building that my grandpa used to repair automobiles. It actually was built with a hayloft and an operating door hoist. Grandpa used the hoist to pull up engines and lift heavy objects out of his pickup truck's bed. In the morning, when I awoke, the barn door was open, and I saw my father looking out of the hayloft door like he was trying to figure something out. So I went outside. The rain from the day before had stopped, and I asked my father what he was doing. He said to me, "Son, whatever is coming by our house is scaring your brother, and scaring your brother is going to meet its end with my shotgun's lead. I don't care if it takes me an hour, a day, or a month, but I'm going to get that bastard for sure, whoever or whatever it may be." I quickly made my way up into the loft as my father explained to me his plan. The barn sat in the dark with no exterior lighting on it that shone on it during the night. The loft door, which was about 12 feet from the ground, faced directly at Wade's window. My dad said that each night the monster had showed up, it was well before midnight, while mostly everyone was still awake, with the exception of Wade and Grandma. His plan was to get up in the loft at sunset each day for as long as it took until he took the bastard down. I told him I'd stay with him, but he refused, saying that a man needed to remain in the house to protect the others. And so each night I sat with a bat and my .410 shotgun parked by the door. Just after Wade had gone to sleep. Wade was now sleeping upstairs, and my dad had ingeniously made a kind of mock-up Wade as though he was still in his bedroom. 3 days later, at 8:10 exactly, I heard both barrels of my dad's shotgun go off and the pellets hitting the side of the house. I guarded the front door until moments later when I heard my father's footsteps on the stairs and opened the door to let him in. His eyes were as wide as saucers, and he simply said, "I got him." My mother said, "Honey, who did you get?" And he said, "The monster." He went into his liquor cabinet and poured about 4 shots into a glass and sat down. My mother went by his side to comfort him, saying nothing, as he finally broke his silence and began to tell us what happened. He said he saw a large, shadowy figure moving across the yard while looking through the hayloft door that was cracked open about 4 inches. When finally it had reached a point where it was by the corner of the house, which was, by the way, painted white. It was then that he caught full view of the immensity of this thing's silhouette. And he realized that this was no man. It was, as Wade had said, a monster of epic proportions. He said it approached Wade's window with the glow of his nightlight illuminating it. It was rocking back and forth in front of the window, ducking its head down to look inside. My dad said that when it was standing before it had ducked down, it was at least 2 feet higher than the window frame, which itself was about 9 feet tall or thereabouts. And when it was in front of the window, its body consumed both the window and the side-by-side shutters as well. My dad said that before it had a chance to move, he put a round of buck square in its back and hit it with the second in the legs as it turned to run. But it wasn't enough to stop it. Rather, he said, this thing took off like a bat out of hell into the darkness. The next morning, my father called the police to report what happened during the night. We went outside to greet the officers and stood alongside of the house where Dad had blasted this thing. Very few of the pellets had missed their mark, with the evidence being just a couple in and next to the shutters which flanked the window. The glass was untouched, and some of the shingles were broken on the lower wall. The concrete was also chipped where my dad had said he fired at its legs trying to take it down. He described it as being a darkly colored and standing on 2 legs. He said it was 4 to 5 feet wide at the back and about 10 feet tall, with extremely long arms. Even after being shot twice, it was able to run like a deer into the darkness, not making so much as a sound, not a scream, not a yelp, nothing. The police were dumbfounded, and as for me, I was in a daze just listening to it. My dad was a real no-nonsense type of man. Even at 60, he was still yes, sir, and no, ma'am with everyone. A deal was a deal, and a handshake sealed it. There was no way he didn't see what he saw and shoot at it just the way he said he did. We never had another issue with this monster, Peeping Tom, after that. And I had taken over that bedroom from my little brother Wade. Having read several of your books, Bill, I thought you might find this a little more than interesting. And so I contacted you. Pretty bizarre, huh, Kev?
Wow. That's when you were first talking about the bear prints outside the window. It took me a minute to catch on that it was barefoot prints. At first, I thought they found a bear looking in the window.
No, bear footprints.
Yeah, bear footprints. Wow. And the thing's like 11 feet tall and wider than a window with the shutters, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big mother jumper, man.
Pretty cool evidence, too, where, he took his shotgun, shot this thing in the back while it's looking in the window, and the glass isn't broken, and there's pellet damage outside the shutters. I mean, that had to be a head scratcher for even the most skeptical police officer responding.
Yeah, and, they had commented that very little of the shot had missed its mark because there was kind of incidental pellet damage, a couple of broken shingles when he went for the legs or the lower body. So everything that was in those two buckshots hit him.
That's what I mean. That's pretty good evidence that there was something standing there that he shot.
Yeah, now, the one thing that was lacking here as I'm reading this, I don't know what the distance was from the open hayloft to the side of the house.
Yep.
But Buck comes out fairly concentrated,
Yeah.
And it is a shotgun, so you're going to get a little bit of scattering. But I've never shot buckshot at a target to know what kind of pattern it lays down. It like when I shoot trap, sometimes when I was sighting in my over-under, I shoot at some patterns. I like to shoot a pattern that's like 70-30, which means that at range, 30% of the pattern is going to come below the clay, and 70% is going to consume the clay and above it. So, typically a clay is rising, right?
Yep.
So you want to kind of consume that clay in the pattern as it's lifting when the pattern reaches it.
Yep.
But I think buckshot probably just comes out straight on in some type of a circle, maybe 30 inches, 36 inches at, I don't know, maybe 30 yards or something.
Yeah, I actually don't know, but it's a good question.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But buck pellets are pretty big, and, man, they got to hit you with a wallop. And this thing ran away. It didn't even scream, screech, yelp, whatever the words he used was. So that is just incredible, man. But end of the problem. So either that thing dropped dead somewhere out in the woods, or just didn't want anything more to do with more buckshot hitting it.
Yeah.
Which is reasonable.
Probably the latter. Yeah, probably the latter. Had enough of it.
Yeah, I don't want any more to do with any buckshot hitting me as well.
Very cool.
Remember the old stories? People used to say they put salt in their shotguns, farmers, to shoot at people who were trying to rip off their crops.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if that's true or false. Maybe some of our listeners out there could give an explanation for the old stuffing the barrel with rock salt.
That is absolutely true.
Shooting people in the keister.
Yeah, but I'm happy to hear from other people confirming it too, but I've seen it, so.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So there you
have it, It's a good deterrent. Plus it scared the bejesus out of you.
Whack. I can't imagine salt in an open wound. That had to be pretty irritating.
Oh, and I just mean somebody shooting at you with a shotgun. Like, you'd be happy to get the salt in the open wound. Compared to the alternative.
Right, lead.
Yeehaw.
Crazy stuff, Kev, huh?
That is a great account, Bill. I'm sitting there imagining it, and I like the boy Wade making the face like the creature.
Yeah, and I'm visualizing that as I was reading it again. You know how we used to pull our mouth open and show our teeth and go like, ah.
What do you mean used to?
Yeah, but this is what he was seeing. And as a 7-year-old, I mean, hell, if you saw a man looking in your window, you'd be freaking out.
Absolutely.
Like, well, who are you and what are you doing, And then it happened twice, and the third time, Dad was in waiting.
Yeah.
So this thing was a repeat offender.
No doubt.
He was out on bail, and decided he needed some jail time. So what do you have, Kevin? Cryptids in the news and other oddities segment.
Yeah, we're going to get the creep on a little bit. Not too badly, but a little bit today.
A little bit creepy.
So I'm taking it easy on you folks, maybe. And we're going to go and look at some of the hauntings and ghosts that have been reported in the White House in Washington, D.C., good old 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Did you say ghosts as in multiple?
Oh, yeah.
Because the only thing I've heard of through the years was reportedly Abraham Lincoln making showings over there.
Well, we're definitely going to talk about Abe because he is the most famous of the ghosts.
Okay.
Yeah. And, it's an interesting place because the building's unique status as both a home, right, that a family lives in, and also the seat of immense power makes any type of ghost stories about it uniquely potent, right? And, you'll hear, I'll talk a little bit about different famous people that have run into the ghosts while they've been staying there, too.
Yeah, and that's true. I don't think a lot of people are aware about that. There are some guests that are invited there to stay over while they're there, as opposed to getting a hotel room or something.
Yeah, I think less and less these days, other than family friends. Like I don't really hear too much about foreign dignitaries staying over at the White House anymore, but in the older days, that was fairly typical.
Sure, it was a beautiful house. You had food.
You got room.
You could bathe.
Got security. You got chefs. You got whatever you want.
Right. So you stay there. It was probably the best place in the city to crash.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about that first ghost that we'll talk about today, and that's Abraham Lincoln, the President Abraham Lincoln. And of course, Lincoln had, a horrible life and a horrible death. Although, he was indeed a great president, bringing the Civil War to an end, basically, or, fighting to bring the Civil War to an end. Mm-hmm. But, when he was president, he had a dream, and he talked about this, a chilling dream that he recounted to his friend Ward Hill Lamone. And he told him about it just before his assassination. And in the dream, he wandered around in the White House, Lincoln did, hearing subdued sobs until he reached the East Room of the White House. And there he saw a casket in which rested a corpse. And when he asked a soldier who was actually dead there in the White House, the soldier replied, "The president. He was killed by an assassin."
Wow, what a crazy dream to have, a precognition of his own demise.
Can you believe that?
No, but I mean, it was recorded. I mean, he shared it, and it was shared after his demise for posterity.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's interesting in itself. And then a tragedy that befell the Lincolns was the death of their 11-year-old son, Willie. So Willie passed away in 1862 from typhoid fever. Right, so he catches a fever and dies. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And, it plunged the family, especially Lincoln's wife, Lady Mary Todd Lincoln, into grave despair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine,
Yeah. And then Mary, she's can't imagine losing your child. And she's so depressed that she turns to, at the time, this burgeoning spiritualism movement, and not good spiritualism, right? This was wildly popular in the Civil War as a way for families to seek comfort with their lost loved ones. And this was about, bringing in a medium and holding seances to contact their lost loved one's spirit.
And they were doing this in the White House?
Yeah, so she held numerous seances in the Red Room of the White House, attempting to contact Willie's spirit. And she later told her half-sister, Willie lives. He comes to me every night and stands at the foot of my bed with the same sweet, adorable smile that he always had. Right?
Wasn't Nancy Reagan also calling mediums in, or as I recall? You may not know, Kev.
I don't know, but that's a good question. That one didn't come up, but there's a lot of material out there about ghosts in the White House.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting, right? So
yeah.
So now we talk about other people seeing Lincoln in the White House.
Did anybody see Willie?
No, just Lady Mary Todd Lincoln.
Oh, so she saw Willie.
Yeah. After doing all the seances, he would come and stand at the foot of her bed on a regular basis, apparently.
That's weird.
Really weird. But also, they don't talk about it in these stories. But of course, if she's having all of these seances in the White House, who knows what she's conjuring up?
Correct. Invitation only. So what appeared as Willie
could have been anything.
Could have been Nilly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hi. I'd like to use your phone.
Oh.
Can I come in?
Are you saying that the black-eyed children are not nice kids?
Well, it's a rather large bed you're sleeping in. Could I cuddle up next to you? You don't mind, do you?
I'm a little cold.
I could warm up with you.
All right.
Not!
So let's go forward to the 1920s from the 1860s. And this is during Calvin Coolidge's term as president. And First Lady Grace Coolidge claimed to have seen President Lincoln, hands clasped behind his back, gazing out the window of the yellow Oval Room towards the Potomac and the old Civil War battlefields beyond it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just like meditating or pondering, whatever he was thinking at the time.
Whatever he was thinking about, the battle that might be going on out there, right?
Yeah.
And then so that was First Lady that saw Lincoln. And perhaps one of the most dramatic encounters involved Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands. So she was staying in the White House, and in 1942, she was awakened by a knock on her door, and she was staying in the Lincoln bedroom. She opened it to see the towering, top-hatted figure of Lincoln himself, and she promptly fainted, and the servants found her.
That just gave me a chill when you said that.
I know. Can you imagine?
A knock at the door, and she opens it. Who is it?
She wakes up, goes to answer the door, and it's tall Abraham Lincoln in his black coat and top hat.
Yeah, and I mean, you're in the White House, you're in the Lincoln bedroom, you're not thinking anything sinister, like maybe it's the maid or whatever. Hello, ma'am, I hope I didn't disturb you. Would you like something for breakfast? Whatever. And she opens the door, and there's Lincoln, 6 foot, whatever he was, with his huge 1.5 foot tall top hat on. Wow. Yeah. Always dressed in black, too. Every picture you saw of Lincoln, he was wearing black with that big stovepipe hat on and the beard,
No doubt about it. Yeah. So.
Wow.
All right. And now, perhaps the most famous and certainly most peculiar and a little humorous story, too, comes from British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. So during World War II, he came over. Remember, he was trying to get Roosevelt to support the United Kingdom in the battle against Germany. Right. And he was staying again in the Lincoln bedroom. And, he was famous, Churchill was famous for taking baths, right? And doing his thinking, taking a bath while smoking a cigar and maybe drinking some scotch while he's in the bathtub. And it's true.
Take your time, Winston.
It's true. So he's there in the Lincoln bedroom. He's taking a bath. He gets out of the bath naked and smoking a cigar when he saw Lincoln leaning against the fireplace mantel. Wow. Can you imagine? Ever unflappable, Churchill reportedly took the cigar from his mouth, tapped off the ash, and quipped, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage."
I love it.
And so get this. So Lincoln's ghost is said to have smiled softly and then vanished. But Churchill refused to sleep in that room that night or ever again.
Oh, my God. Mr. President, you seem to have me as a disadvantage. Fat, naked guy with a plug cigar in his puss.
Exactly. Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, and then so we'll wrap it up here. Some of these Lincoln ghosts, and we'll talk about some of the other hauntings in another podcast. But many have seen Lincoln, but some have actually felt his presence. So Eleanor Roosevelt, who used the Lincoln bedroom as her study, denied ever seeing him, but she said she often felt his presence as if he were standing behind her, peering over her shoulder as she worked. And Lady Bird Johnson, wife of President Lyndon B. Johnson, later on then, felt a similar presence while she was watching a television program about Lincoln's death.
Wow. And I think, there's a sequence here. I could be wrong, but I think Eleanor Roosevelt was also calling on mediums over there.
Oh, could be.
Now, and now it's got Nancy Reagan. Who was that astrologer that was fairly famous back then in the newspapers? She did a column. I think Nancy Reagan was inquiring of this astrologer for guidance and things, and it may have been Eleanor Roosevelt that had called in mediums. But there was a lot of people. I don't know why these people are drawn into this. People are seeking information, right? That's what they're looking for, right?
Yep.
But, it's like, be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, and a lot of them are seeking peace, with the tragedy, so you can understand what they do. But like you said, you're inviting anything to come in through that portal. And even if something comes in that appears to be your long-lost family member, it doesn't mean that it is.
Yeah, now, I used to watch this show called Most Haunted. And it was a team of British, quote, poltergeist investigators, And I found this show particularly interesting. And I used to watch it, as I do watch these shows periodically, because I wanted to know, quote, what the other side is doing, like know your enemy. And I found these Brits particularly interesting. But one thing they used to do all the time was hold a seance as a group around a table pretty much wherever they went. And now you could call it tomfoolery, fantasy, made for TV. I don't think so. I think these people were legitimately engaging entities, and some really strange and nasty stuff used to happen when they were having their seances. Now, again, Kev, these people were practiced at seances. They weren't doing it randomly.
Yeah.
These were planned and focused events with individuals who were like legitimately opening themselves up to whatever would come.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no thanks. And they had some crazy stuff going on with them. Tables lifting, flipping around, rocking around, glasses flying off the tables.
Yeah, I have watched that show in the past too, Bill. But I've said it on this podcast before, and some of you, all of you, nearly all of you that don't know me personally, will be like, "Oh, come on, that's not true." That stuff just scares the bejesus out of me. I can't watch it.
Yeah,
and I can watch horror and thriller and stuff like that, but that pure demonic stuff, just like, whoa, man, I do feel chills, and goosebumps just watching it, and I'm like, oh, I don't like this,
Yeah, well,
it's too close to reality.
Well, it is reality. That's the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
It is reality, and this is why when we flip back to Bigfoot encounters, how many times have I read or spoken about people saying they had a feeling of dread? Imminent danger. I mean, this is why, because I think there's another element here, as I've spoken about before in Bigfoot encounters, where some of this stuff is not, it would be freaky enough like to walk up on a 1,500-pound grizzly bear, whatever feeling you would get, or 1,000-pound Bigfoot at 10 foot tall.
Right.
But there's another aspect to it besides getting freaked out, like, oh, I mean, I remember walking into people's yards when I worked for United Parcel Service and having like a 200-pound frickin' dog from hell just like appear on the corner of a house outside between me and the way out. And that would give me a little freak out, like, uh-oh, what's going to happen now?
No doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I was geared up to fight and defend, but there is that feeling of like, imminent danger, trouble. But then there's this other aspect of the word dread, doom. I mean, pick all the adjectives you want that are like a little more descriptive of something else. And this White House stuff with these ghosts, I mean, you're having seances, you're calling people in. Who knows what's wrong? I'd like to know, and we're not going to be able to find out, but I'd like to know what is still going on there now. Like even talking to the hired help, the cooks, the chefs. Is there anything going on in the kitchen, the cleaning staff, because typically there is like residual stuff going on, but nobody talks about it,
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you talked about Nancy Reagan potentially having these seances in the White House, and I'll end it here with when the Reagans were in the White House, apparently their dog, you know how often dogs are rumored to be able to sense these specters and that?
Yes, very sensitive.
Yeah, the Reagan's dog would stand on the threshold of the Lincoln bedroom on a regular basis, barking its head off, and would not go into the bedroom.
There you go. I mean, there you go.
I mean, something's going on there.
Now, a good friend of mine, I'm not going to mention the name in this circumstance because I don't think I should. A good friend of mine has some type of entity in his house. He lives there with his wife, 2 or 3 cats, 2 children, and a very large dog, 250-pound dog. One of the cats regularly hisses and meows staring at this thing. Now, my friend has seen this entity, and he calls it the mimic. And one time it appeared as his smaller daughter. Ugh. With this big crap-eating grin on its face, like something out of a monster movie, Ugh. And it's in the house. So it doesn't scare my friend because he's had a lot of stuff happen, and he's just like bulletproof. But they're living there, And this thing is passing around in there. And who knows the how and the why of why it's there. The house is old. They bought it used, And it's not particularly bothering anybody, but the cat reacts to it. Even
It would
when
be
it's
bothering me. I'd be like, hello, is this Remax Realty? Can you come over in the next 10 minutes and check out my house?
Yeah, we're looking to move.
We're
like
looking
tomorrow.
to move like right away. Everything's included. Everything.
Everything. All-inclusive sale. So what do we have, Kevin, on listener mail? Anything going on?
Yeah, we got a good email this week, Bill, from Thomas. And there's a question in here for you, so get ready, WJ.
Okay.
So the subject, I'll give you a hint, is Texas in regional books. And Thomas writes, hi, WJ and KJ. Yes, both of you. Thank you, Thomas, for acknowledging that I exist. I love the podcast, and I am on episode 276, almost caught up with the current ones. I think your podcast and the evidence provided has even changed my girlfriend from skeptic to believer. I've never seen a Bigfoot, but I will certainly go to the Big Thicket in southeast Oklahoma, and who knows? My reason for emailing is to ask which of the regional books includes Texas and Oklahoma. Again, thank you so much for the podcast. Hours of endless entertainment. And from a fellow devout Catholic, thank you also for being fearless to talk about the truth of our faith to all. God bless you both. Tom in Kerrville, Texas.
Interesting, huh, Kevin?
Yeah.
So as far as Texas and Oklahoma, I believe both of them are in the Central U.S. book. I had to, when I was divvying up North America, I was kind of segregating states, trying not to give any one book like too much, I did the best I could. And I think in the end, there was a corridor coming down from like somewhere around one or two of the Great Lakes down to the Southland and kind of like Midwest. And I included everything else in there. And believe it or not, other than Texas, Texas was the most heavily dotted with Bigfoot accounts. But the rest of the central United States didn't have much activity. And, it was one or two here. One state had nothing. I think North Dakota had no encounters that I had. South Dakota, I think, had one or two. But I attribute this to the fact that it's more open and drier and more arid, perhaps, and less cover.
Yeah, a lot of plains, for sure.
Right. The plains, less cover, less and I could be talking out of my butt, but less larger bodies of water. Anyways, there was fewer in the central U.S., that whole corridor stretching from like Canada down through Texas. But Texas and Oklahoma, I believe you'll find in the central U.S. book. And also, I think on Amazon, if you click on the book, you can like look at a couple of pages. You can look at the
table of contents usually. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the table of contents is there, and it will tell you exactly what is in each book.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, interesting.
Cool.
So we got spooks. We got a peeping Tom Bigfoot that gets some lead in its butt. And very interesting indeed. And remember, folks, if you want to contact us, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com, hit the contact link. If you've seen something, say something. Give us your report, leave a number. Remember, the shop is open now with all kinds of cool merchandise. And Kevin and I said on the last podcast, if you send a picture in of you wearing a shirt or a hat or sitting at the coffee table, just leave your face out of it. Kevin jokingly said, why don't you wear a Bigfoot mask?
I wasn't joking. Or a crazy clown mask.
or a crazy clown mask. And take a picture, and periodically we're going to post some of these pictures to the website as they come in. And remember, folks, you should find yourself sleeping next to a window in the darkness of night, wandering around the woods in the big thicket. You best remember one thing, my friends. Always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. Sleep tight.